Welcome to ShiftWatch. I'm your host, Starbuck. In this episode, a few days ago, I found myself at the hub of a series of beyond Earth sentient contact that was recorded by David Wallace on the West Coast and another colleague on the East Coast. Dave goes on to remind us of the reports of sightings in multiple locations on the planet at the same time. We have a different perspective of the suggested mass landings. Next, understanding the solar wind chart. Ben Davidson at Suspicious Observers provides us with a comprehensive explanation of the solar wind chart, what it represents, and how we interpret the sun's influence on Earth's geomagnetic conditions with it. Then, this past week, our friend Scanner Guy, 1968, captured these highly unusual activities in the Wisconsin skies in a relatively short period of time. Imagine what's within your field of view if you only took the time to look. And finally, Inner Earth enthusiasts, Mr. Mythos reports on efforts underwritten by the US government in the 1920s and 30s to find Shambhalla in Inner Earth, long before the UFO phenomenon reports began in the 40s and 50s. Okay, so I'm going to briefly set this up because it's been a while since you and I have had something to share. And I want to underscore again for people that like when we get together, Dave and I are not cut out and don't have the time and the bandwidth to put something out there every week because we think you need to hear something from us. But when we do, be assured that there's something tangible behind it, and this is one of those days. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave, because the idea of, we've heard the term mass landings over, the last, I don't know, call them years, however you want to measure that. And Dave and I kind of put it in its place, but dismissed it. Right now, it's hard to dismiss the amount of activity that's being reported and being recorded. And it's from that perspective that we're going to begin to share today. So first, I want Dave to kind of set the stage for what's been going on in his realm, and then we'll share what you contributed to us. And then I'll talk further on somebody on the East Coast who got triggered like in May, and we'll share what she has seen in the last 2 days. So, Dave, help me out, pal.
Wow. Welcome back, and hello, everybody. Right, it's like there's no contrivance because shit happens and you got to just sort of get it out there as soon as it happens while things are fresh. So I'm going to start just a little bit talking about things that you and I have been going over for years now, which is the trip 2017 with Kim Jim. And if you guys remember, when he pulled me up into his ship and then showed me the underworkings of how the craft works and how the direction and the thrust and all sorts of things were controlled magnetically and gravitationally, not electromagnetically. It was a gravitational magnetic drive. And he showed me the magnets that were hanging from the bottom of the midships and all that stuff. And then he took me up that railing, that like escalator with the blue light handles, boom, got up to midships. He's off the blue platform that everyone moves around on when you're traveling through the ship because it's so big. And there's always a handrail to hold, but it's made out of plasma. Anyways, he gets down first, quite agile, of course, and then he helps me off. And that's where Kim Jim said, David, I love you very much. And I know you're going to have a wonderful time. This is Erom, who will take you to Weimar. And I will see you in 2 years' time. That, oh, gee, it's January 7th, 2025. This is my 5th visit. Kim Jim's going to show up. And damn, sure enough, He sure did. He showed up right over my house. The ship showed up. I got some film footage of it, but then I got some really fantastic photos, which I immediately shared with you. And it was almost like so wild. Okay, so I get my messages pretty quick through CLPF, and I know what they are immediately because I've already been programmed to receive this information that way. And
Should we
so,
share the pictures now while you talk about it?
yeah, we could, but just before you, yeah, put the one on where he's standing upright, because this is, if you guys remember, this is how he came down to me in 2017, was this gigantic craft lowered straight down this way. And it was a lot like the movie Prometheus at the very beginning, where they've got that Ridley Scott's got that massive, beautiful ovular ship in the atmosphere. Yeah, that's it. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, just point out, people see the tree line, so get some
Yeah, that's above the
perspective.
trees. There we go. Bingo. That's perfect right there. So that's Kim Jim's ship. And so it was just such a treat, because that's how he arrives when he comes into the atmosphere. It's straight down. The normal orientation for the inside of that craft is sideways, and this is where the ship turns. And if you want to expand on that a bit, you see? So the attitude and the whole adjustment of the way the ship starts to change, and then it goes into this, which is the normal attitude for any of the ships that come to Earth. And so you guys can see how absolutely fabulously huge this ship is. This thing is the size of 3 aircraft carrier. And it's just such a beautiful, wonderful thing to experience when the big ship comes in.
Well, I'm disappointed. There's a couple of little MPEG files that apparently I can't pull up and show here, because if you did, you'd see this thing flashing. She sent me 3 files. The first one, clearly she was sitting back further than this in her room, and this is what she's seeing from her perspective. The next image is a little more video that she tried to zoom in on, and then she took this still. So I want you to tell me, is that inside the window or outside
That's exactly
the window?
That's inside, and this is exactly what Kim Jim does with me. You've put up photographs for me last time we were talking years ago about how he's a blue glowing light that comes through the window. This is exactly okay. So this is a typical Tauran, everybody. This is how the people of Taurus, the beings in the 4th dimension of Taurus, come into your life, man. And this is brilliant. They are a beautiful, beautiful, angelic blue, sparkling star. And they come right through the glass. And, I know my balcony door was left open, but after they put a smock on me, I was knocked out. And then I woke up again on the beach. I don't know how they got me out of my house, because that's how they get in. They come right through the glass. And it's funny, they'll come through a wall too, but their light's a little different. You see more of a sphere when they come through the wall. This is beautiful. Yeah, it's definitely the real deal.
We have had some folks politely ask for a video explaining the solar wind chart. It's what we're looking at here. The solar wind is the particle energy emission from the sun, opposite the light emission. While the sun's light is most important for photosynthesis and overall warmth in the daytime, the particles constantly flowing outwards from the sun in all directions are the key to how the sun controls the weather, earthquakes, technological performance, and human health. The chart shows 5 key parameters in the solar wind. We'll start at the bottom 3 panels first, since they characterize the physical nature of the solar wind. The middle panel, in orange here, shows density in protons per cubic centimeter. Normally, we'd see around 1 to 10 protons, but often the solar wind is a bit more sparse. During solar storm impacts, the density can surge to 30, 50, or more protons per cubic centimeter. The next panel down in purple shows the solar wind speed in kilometers per second. Normal solar wind speed is between 300 and 450 kilometers per second, but CME shock waves and coronal hole streams are significantly faster, up to 600, 800, even 1,000 kilometers per second or more. We have a fast coronal hole stream on this chart right here, actually. Plasma speed in excess of 600 kilometers per second for a considerable period. Bottom panel in green is plasma temperature in Kelvin. This usually tracks along with the plasma speed and can also indicate when those shock waves and coronal hole streams arrive. The two up top are where people likely get confused. Blue is the phi angle, and to start, let's zoom in here. If you look closely, you should notice that this top panel in the blue phi angle section is not as big as the three below it. That area from 300 and above is smaller, and that's because it only actually goes up to 360, not 400. That's because the phi angle is a radial measurement in 360 degrees, describing the primary magnetic field direction embedded within the solar wind. Where 0 meets 360 up at the top and bottom of the panel, it's north-facing magnetic fields. When they are closer to 180 degrees, then it is southward-facing magnetism. This is important because northern fields deflect off of Earth's magnetic field, while southern-facing fields couple with it, cause much worse solar storms. Then finally up top we have the magnetic components of the overall environment, plus whether or not they will be expected to deflect or couple with the Earth. In many ways, the top panel shows a combination of information that could be gleaned from the other four. The red line is the important one, the BZ. The northern fields are positive while the southern fields are negative there, and the magnitude is based on the density, speed, and temperature of the solar wind. Basically, the further the red line goes into negative, the more the solar wind is pounding our planet. Now, you may see other versions of solar wind data, so let's take a moment. This is from the new Discover satellite, but nearly all the solar wind data in the archive is from the ACE satellite. Sometimes that one has a black background. Many people like the look of that better. And you notice the purple solar wind speed panel is now yellow, still second from the bottom. The panel data never changes. Bottom is always temperature, top is always BZ, etc. But you may encounter different colored data panels and a different background color. By the way, this one here shows a CME shockwave impact where the yellow line jumps up as the plasma density is rising. There's a bump in the BZ magnitude as well, all at the same time. That's a CME impact. Here's another black background ACE image with a coronal hole stream. This time the density peak comes before a slow rise in plasma speed, with a phi angle flip during the density peak. That's a coronal hole stream. Anyway, hopefully you understand this chart a bit better now. I will see you in the morning for the daily show. Be safe, everyone.
In the 1920s, Nicholas and Helena Roerich, a mystic husband and wife, took a journey deep into the Tibetan Himalayas under the funding of American sponsors, the true purpose of which remains up for debate. However, there is a legend in Tibet that has existed for thousands of years of a hidden underground kingdom known as Shambhalla. Shambhalla has played a role in nearly every Tibetan tradition, and surrounding geographic regions such as Mongolia, India, and China have direct mythological parallels to this inner earth civilization of technologically and spiritually advanced, godlike people. The Roerichs, Russian expatriates funded by the Americans, were serious believers in the legend of Shambhalla. During their 5-year expedition, they disappeared somewhere in the Himalayas for more than 12 months. No one is sure what the Roerichs actually did in this period of time, with only sparse journal entries describing a sighting of a flying saucer and the receival of some magical stone, among other bizarre events most would label as fantasy. Though their expedition was publicly labeled a failure, it's likely that wasn't true at all, because in 1933, the office of the US President Franklin Delano Roosevelt funded a second expedition in which they again completely disappeared for 3 months in the Himalayas. Shambhalla has been called by many names in different cultures, the most famous being Agartha. In fact, Shambhalla is often said to be Agartha's capital city, Agartha being an extensive subterranean network of advanced civilizations that escaped some cataclysm thousands of years ago. I previously investigated the legend of Agartha in detail, and I'll leave a link to that video at the end. The most ancient Hindu and Buddhist scriptures speak of Shambhalla as if it actually exists. It has a specified lineage of 32 rulers, a population of at least 20,000 when the city was built, and a geopolitical history recorded in the ancient Buddhist text, the Kalachakra Tantra. Moreover, it's believed the same civilization was described by the pre-Buddhist religion of Tibet, known as Bon, which states the entrance as being west of Mount Kailash. Despite most Buddhists today asserting that Shambhalla exists in a purely spiritual dimension, it's clear that in many early traditions, Shambhalla was believed to be physically accessible. It's only a matter of finding the hidden kingdom in one of the most uncharted and extreme regions in the world, the Himalayan mountains. Undoubtedly, the only people equipped for such a dangerous and esoteric mission were Nicholas and Helena Roerich, two of the greatest mystics to have ever lived, and they might have actually found it.